So welcome everyone. I'm Catherine Wygant Fawcett, the Executive Director of the Institute for Family-Owned Business, otherwise known as IFOB or IFOB, or however you like to call us. Thank you to Baker Newman Noyes for being our presenting sponsor today. As many of you know, the IFOB is a nonprofit that helps family business, and we typically offer over 50 different programs, from our awards to our educational and social events. We work with CEOs, we work with women in family business, we work with the next generation, and we work with leaders in transition. We've adapted our programs to go online and some in person this year. And our next event will be an in-person and hybrid combo. Now, the Institute has been offering Zoom programs for over 5 years, but we've usually had them in person and then people Zoomed in. Now we're going to try and make it really interactive because it's going to be a really fun one with Priscilla's husband too. It's going to be our next gen IFOB Family Feud game. So we've sent a survey out. We have survey says, we're working on that. So if you want to come in person, it's next Thursday at the Woodlands from 3 to 5:30, but you can also Zoom in too. So we're excited about that. And we will have beverages. We do have some beverages tonight. If you please feel free to have those and enjoy those. And we will have individual boxed cheese and crackers and grapes. For that, normally we have a lovely buffet with hors d'oeuvres, but because we're being socially distanced, we'll have that. And we have prizes and other great things too. And it's a way for people to learn about our next gen affinity group. And it's open to everyone. So we hope you can join us. And final IFOB program for 2020, can't believe that, is our women in family business, including men. So we do invite the men too. It's going to be on Thursday. We changed it to December 3rd from 4 to 6 on Zoom. And it's equitability. Will COVID-19 balance the gender scales? And we'll be moderated by Noelle Castle, from owner of Castle Media Company, Aaron Clymer Lessard, owner of Lessard Consulting, Sarah Helpin, she's a partner from Bat Cove Financial, and Joan Fortin, the CEO of Bernstein Shore. So if you'd like to join that, you can come to our website, fambusiness.org. So to fulfill our mission to help family businesses, the IFOB and board and staff decided this year to waive our family business membership fees. So you get a little bit of time left if you want to join us for free. If you're interested, please just contact us and we'll do that. And then we have an intimate group today. Normally we take the videos off and mute the microphones, but we knew we wanted to have some fun here because Elizabeth is our fun leader. And so everything's open for everybody to have some fun. We did say bring your fun mask. So Elizabeth, let's see what you have here. She has quite a clever one. So, right, patriotic one, but if you have a fun mask, we can do that. We'll be recording this for later if you want to share it, and we want to make it interactive. So I will pop up my chat. So if you have any questions or just chime in. And at the end, I will be putting a link into a survey. We'd love to have your thoughts because that's how we build our programs for next year. So now I will turn it over to Elizabeth, who will take us through a fun evening. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Catherine, for having me. Thank you all for showing up. I know a lot of us are a little bit zoomed out. And I think really what I've been thinking about as I was trying to figure out how to best serve in this space where we're kind of overwhelmed, many of us, with all the things that are going on in our lives, is to really talk about resilience and talk about how important it is to feed ourselves in order to feed others, since we're all leading companies and businesses. And my history is in well-being. I was in employee well-being for 20 years. I worked for Anthem in their national accounts area in Maine and in New York. And then I worked for head of health and well-being for TD Bank based here in Portland, but I was kind of in charge of the US population. And then I started out with a family business. My dad had a bearing supply company, so I grew up in family business. And I've had a couple of my own businesses throughout the years as I kept bouncing out of the corporate mania. And so I've happily been self-employed for the last, since 2016 now. And my daughter is getting ready to join the business, which is very exciting. And so it's great to be back into where my heart lives. One of the things that I wanted to just start us off with, we're going to do some fun things. We're going to do some self-feeding things, and we're also going to get into some just learning and wisdom from each other. The beginning of this, we want to just talk about what are some of the lessons learned in, as we're going through this. And I'm just looking at share screen. So give me 2 seconds here. I just want to, I'm going to share for a second my messy desktop, but don't be alarmed. It looks a little scary, but it's not as bad as you think. So we're having whatever we want to drink, tea and cocktails. One of the things that I think is really important when we think about the word resilience is it's not just personal, it's business and personal. And one of the things that I've noticed, I'll stop sharing and I'm going to get us to a question, but then I'll stop sharing for a second, is that I've been really paying attention, I'm sure you guys have, as to, how have we as businesses responded to what's happening? There's so much coming at us between COVID and the racial inequity strife and the political landscape, and then just before any of that stuff started, mental well-being. I've been tracking mental well-being for the past probably 10 years in my career before I started my own business fully focused on mental well-being. And it's one of the number one issues that we all face. And how we show up as leaders, as owners, and also how we treat our people is really, really important in terms of our bottom line, in terms of turnover, in terms of what their well-being. And so I've been looking at COVID, like all of the things that are happening and kind of watching. And there are a couple of companies that really stood out for me. And then maybe a lesson of a company that stood out, but maybe not the way they wanted to stand out, but then there's some heart in there. So the first company that really caught my attention is a national company, is Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's is right here. Well, I happen to be based in Portland, but how many people have been to a Trader Joe's? Has anybody come to Portland, been to one? And I don't know if they're further into the state yet, but hopefully they will be. And what I noticed about Trader Joe's, what I love about them, first of all, they're a conscious company. They're a company that believes in stakeholder thinking, which I think is almost an innate part of family-owned business. Thinking about community and everybody that we work with are our partners and family-owned businesses. And Trader Joe's, as big as they are, I think really kind of operates that way in what I've observed. And I noticed straight off that they were protecting their employees, and to this very day, they're protecting their employees. That from the very beginning, they had the lines out of the building, and some people were really upset about that, and they didn't care. They're like, what matters is keeping everybody healthy. And even as we are 8 months in, they're still going. Their procedure worked so well that they're still doing the exact same procedure. From when I went in April, or I think I was a little bit nervous at the beginning, so I probably waited till April or so to go there. And from there all the way through now, they're wiping everything down. You have to stand back to protect their associates while they're bagging your groceries. To me, just that knowing that they have and they carry through this integrity and this safety first philosophy is a great example, I think, for any of us in business. So that was the national example. A local example, how many of you know Steve Tenney and Great Diamond Partners, IFOB member? They have done a unique thing. I'm actually helping with this. They have been really focused on mental well-being for their associates and teaching people the power of pause. And they actually offer a weekly space, Power of Pause, that we do for 15 minutes with their team. Anybody can bounce in during the 15-20 minutes. And they're just trying to set the example that it's okay to have self-care. So, coming in at 15 minutes doesn't work for everybody in their organization, so they can't always all join. Sometimes it's everyone, and sometimes it's 2 or 3 people. And so what I love about that example is that they're really showing, they're setting the example that self-care is important. And they're also setting the example by doing it together. That's giving permission. So I know in my career, I've worked with a lot of people that have had the best intentions around well-being for their organizations, and yet they're not doing it themselves. Like the owners will say, I want this program for my people, or I want you to talk to, like my manager is going to handle this and roll this out with our people. And then the leaders themselves aren't doing it. And people pay attention to that, even if they think that they might not be paying attention, that they're doing a good thing. I've found that when the leaders get engaged, it makes all the difference in the permission. And so I love that they've been kind of walking the talk. And the third example that I would learn from, which isn't the best example, but it's also, I think, something that can show us about the heart, is the B&B, or the hotel in Millinocket that decided to have the wedding. And to me, I feel like that was such a hard choice, right? That owner is thinking, I'm just guessing, but like, here's a family that are probably already a pod. There's not really any kind of, positive outcomes in terms of virus testing in my area. All of these things, so there's that from the business perspective, and then the family, who doesn't want to go to a wedding and there's nothing happening. So even though that turned out to be this example that no one would want to follow, I think the reason I wanted to bring that to our attention is that it's so important to have heart for the people that went through that decision-making process, that to know that any one of us could have been in that same place as that business owner and thought that they were doing the right thing, and then have it just go completely off the rails. And so I think when we're faced with these challenges, having good core values and really being able to make hard choices is inevitable as we're running businesses. And if you've got that base, if you know what your challenges are, and yes, there is a lot more to that story. That is correct. I was trying to just pull out, a little bit of nuggets that there could be, some things about the story that, could have a little bit of,
yeah.
Right?
So continue. I didn't mean for you to interrupt.
Oh, no, it's fine. I think that's really important.
The wedding industry kind of stabs me in the heart a little bit because my husband's an event DJ, and
sorry.
We know a little bit of backstory about how some of these weddings came to people. You're like, how could you be so irresponsible as a vendor? And the fact of the matter is, they were actually, and I'm not saying this bride was part of this, but there were actually some Facebook group brides. They called themselves COVID brides, and their main operation was to try to trick their vendors into thinking that they were going to have a small scale wedding, but then going ahead and inviting who they wanted to anyway. So there's a lot of background in the wedding industry.
And
We've been put to the test.
Yeah, Priscilla, I'm so glad you said that example.
Yeah, so I mean, yes, we do have to be empathetic to the businesses because it's not always within the business. I'm not saying that was the case.
Yeah.
But some of these things that, oh, sure, I'll bring 50 guests, no more than 50 guests, and then the next thing you know, there's 75 people.
Right.
Where did and what are you going to do at that point? As we've talked about this as a wedding industry, what are you going to do at that point? Turn those people away, or as a vendor, do you pack up and leave? So there was all these ethical choices that have to be made, and
I think that's a great example of what we're facing in all the different businesses that are represented here, and certainly the thousands of businesses that are represented. Is that there are lots of choices being made. And I actually we want to go to a breakout, because we want to start with, what are some of the challenges that you have faced? So I'm going to set up breakout rooms. Have you done that before? Has anybody done that before on Zoom? All you have to do is you'll see a little box pop up, and you'll just say accept, and it's going to bring you into a cyber room, and there'll just be 3 of you. We're going to take maybe 5 or 10 minutes for you guys to, let's do 10 minutes. And I'll try to do 3 to a space. And what I want you to do is just talk about what is a challenge that you've had in the past 8 months that was the greatest challenge that you, and then maybe what you did about it. And then when we come back, I just want to have some kind of popcorn. We'll raise hands and have a few people share, because I think that these examples can help all of us, because this isn't over, right? This is still happening, and there's still going to be tough choices to be made. And so if we can learn from one another, or just have some ideas about how to handle these tough choices, I think that can be valuable to all of us. So here we go. It'll take a couple seconds while I play Wizard of Oz back here in the background. So we're going to do 4 rooms. There. 4 rooms, there'll be 3 to 4 of you, and we're going to go for 10 minutes. So just say hello if you don't know each other already, and then share one of the most challenging things that has happened for you, and maybe, a couple minutes each, and then maybe what you did about that. Is that clear for everybody? All right, here we go. So accept it when you see it. And it's just random. Here we go. Hi. Hi, Judy. Can you unmute? Oh, there's Jason. Jason, can you hear me? Jason, are you on the call?
Was one of our big concerns at first.
Absolutely. And how did you do that? What was the
Well, we ended up with, we purchased a lot of protective equipment and made sure everyone had it. And how our HR person, actually, Ann Latendra, she's in this meeting as well. She did this great project on CDC guidelines and kept us all in the loop of what was okay and what was not okay. and questions to ask. And we had all this protocol that came out about, you need to ask this question, this question, this question before you can enter anyone's home. So it was a challenge, and it still is, you know, honestly.
Bravo, though. That's
Thank you.
great the way you responded to it. What
It's
are
a-
other examples, you guys?
Priscilla, you wanna go? Oh,
We can't hear you.
Okay, so one of my biggest challenges is not realizing when I'm on mute and when I'm not on mute. That was my biggest challenge. No. It's almost like you planned the breakout rooms because Ruben is also in the wedding industry. And so we had
Did you guys know each other before?
I knew his name, and
Yeah.
then when he said Blue Elephant, I was like, oh my God, my husband loves you. So,
Yeah.
I'm more behind the scenes of my husband's business where he's out front. And so I don't always get to meet all the vendors. But we had war stories. and our biggest challenge was, like, I gave an example of, we had to shift a bride's wedding from outside to inside because there was thunderstorms predicted for her day, and we contacted the caterer, the vendor, the venue, and each vendor had a different idea of what was right, because the guidelines for the wedding industry were never clear. They were never like, you can do this, but you can't do this. They did a fairly good job laying out the regulations for the restaurant industry, but wedding industries and events were just kind of up to interpretation. And so it was very frustrating to try to figure out the best way to move forward in some of these events and areas. So did I sum that up right, Ruben? I know you were really actively involved with going to the state and asking for clarification on these checklists and guidelines. And
Yeah, I think you summed it up. In addition, for us, the biggest challenge was we did all of this work throughout the summer, trying to get our situation heard by Augusta, and then the situation in Millinocket happened, and I think the media pinned it on the vendor team, primarily the venue, when really, when it comes down to it, the host is the one that hosted the party, and we never heard boo about the people who actually got married and had the party. It was just everybody else's fault. We demonized the minister, we demonized the venue, but we never heard about the client who actually willy-nilly had a wedding and made all of those people sick and die. So
right.
I'll stop now.
Oh no, it's a great observation, you know.
And since then, you know, in the entertainment industry anyway, because of the wedding in Millinocket, anytime we go forward and ask for something, like we needed clarification on singing indoors because our winter income depends on karaoke, which sounds so silly to some, but it's an important revenue maker for not only the entertainers but also the bars and restaurants. Now bars can't open, but we felt like when we went forward and asked for clarification on anything to do with our industry, it was kind of like a closed door. It's like, well, you saw what happened in Millinocket.
Oh.
So
your industry getting together, like, are you creating ways, and I think IFOB is a great resource, are you guys creating ways to talk with one another, to set your own standards?
Yeah, there's been some great online groups like the main wedding industry network, and we have several industry networks that have led some really good chats like this in our industries.
A group of us got together too and hired a lobbyist for the wedding industry about a month ago too.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you put out that great video that you said don't postpone, you know, postpone, move it to next year.
And that was great.
Yeah, that was one of our big things too as DJs, as well as, can the venues work with the other vendors to make sure that we get carried along in the changing of the bride's plans?
Absolutely.
You know, so because the DJ is about the third in line, you know, it's always the caterer, the vendor, the venue, the caterer, Usually photographer comes ahead of us and then DJ. So, and they cancel in the same order. So we wanted to make sure that we were getting carried along in this ride with replanning and restructuring, because we don't want 2021 to be a complete, if we rebook all our 2020 brides from Saturdays to Saturdays in 2021, we're not going to make any money in 2021 either. The deposits have already been collected, and it's going to be painful. So we need Fridays and Sundays for people to get married. And Sundays are great.
Start a new trend, not Saturday Wednesdays.
Right.
Weddings, Fridays and Sundays.
Fridays and Sundays would be great days, and then Mondays or Tuesdays, those are great days to get married.
Let's start a new I like that.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Thanks, you guys. It's I love the observation, or the bringing up about like how like professionals can get together, how we can learn from each other, and then group together to develop standards when they're not existent to take care of each other.
I would actually say, Ruben, I don't know if you agree, but I think the wedding industry has come closer as a result of this. Like, we're communicating. I think we're communicating more.
Yeah, I agree.
Because sometimes we're always like, oh, the caterer, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, oh, DJ, blah, 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 blah. And now I think we're kind of like, all
in the same boat.
Well, we need each other in a way that we didn't a year ago.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, there are some beautiful, that'll be our next question too. There are some good things that is happening in this. What are other challenges, you guys, that were discussed? Anybody?
We were kind of the opposite in terms of all of our work stopped. All of our work doubled. So when I go back and I look at my hours from beginning of March through about the middle of April, I was putting in about 80-hour weeks. And I was telling my group, it started, with our banking clients, back in early February, just having conversations, and then early March was starting to triage. And I still haven't erased it. It's still on my front board, the strategy map for canceling the main flower show. So because it was that first week, and there wasn't really a playbook as people might think there should have been or could have been, because even banks that had to do bird flu communication plans back in 2005, not that it was not taken seriously, but when you're asked to write a press release about your president dying of bird flu, you're kind of like, yeah, okay, that's going to never happen.
Right.
Linda.
So, Linda, for those of you who don't know, Linda has Broadreach Public Relations.
Yes.
She's been very involved with clients that have had some challenges with COVID and other things too.
Yeah. And prior to that, I was in banking for 25 years, and I was in operations and retail, but I was also a bank security officer and the marketing and communications department. So this was kind of interesting to actually fast forward and say, wow, okay, we were writing these plans back in 2005 because we were regulated. We had to. So, banks were very fortunate that they were able to kind of have something to build from. Like the word social distancing wasn't foreign, that quarantine wasn't foreign, those were all phrases, but for a lot of people they were brand new words, like what the heck does that mean, and
right.
So, but and there's a lot of, like, you think about the Hannaford or the people that own small, convenience stores, the Get and Go's, or the holy moly, nobody was leaving their home. So all these little stores and groceries and, think about just how much more people had to work, so it's like you're either on one end and you're not working, or you're the other end and you're like going crazy, going nuts and everything.
Yeah. And some can be within the same organization.
Right.
Roles that weren't needed, and then roles that were just on fire, like in terms of necessity. Like, yeah, I went even my own business. I was super busy, but not in the thing that was my bigger plan.
Yeah.
For all these other things. And so.
Well, we at the IFOB had a lot of fun of scheduling, rescheduling. Scheduling, we're on, we're off, we're in, we're out, we're seeing people.
We're in person.
like we're doing this on Zoom, but next week we're gonna try a hybrid, see what happens, see how that goes. It's been.
And that's the resiliency. Like that's one of the things too that I love about family business and about smaller business, is that we tend to be quick on our feet if we can. Supply chains can interrupt some of that, and obviously other things that are happening, but we tend to be bootstrap kind of people and looking for things. Are there other examples before we're going to do another breakout about, are you guys okay with the breakouts to go into kind of smaller groups to talk? Because it's random and it's sort of fun to mix other people up. I don't know if it'll random it again on the second round, but I think it does. But this question is, name a way that you've pivoted in a way that you maybe didn't expect it, right? When this all started, is there something, like there's a lot of examples out there, like Flowfold turning into masks, and the breweries and all of the distilleries turning into making hand sanitizer. So there's a lot of different public things that have gone on around retooling, but are there some deeper things that maybe we didn't hear in the news, right? That are ways that you had to rethink how you're doing business, and it might even be something that is good for your longer term thinking. So here we go to breakouts. And
when are we coming back?
Yes, you're coming back.
No, when? 10 minutes?
I'm trying to see. Here we go. Options. So how long is 10 minutes good again? Is that a good enough time? Yeah. It's like basically it's set for 9 minutes. So we'll just go for that.
Okay.
And I'm opening the rooms, and hopefully it might connect the same folks. Is that okay with you guys?
Sure.
All right. Here we go.
Yeah, it's different.
Accept. Hmm. 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 Oh, it's so grainy. Hey, Linda.
Hey.
Hello,
Here,
Karen.
I gotta take a.
Hello.
Catherine.
Hello, we're back.
Anthony, Ruben, Priscilla.
Ta-da!
Ta-da. Beautiful. Did it, and it all seemed to work okay again?
Yep.
Yeah, very smooth.
Yeah, we went into our same group, and that was good.
Yeah.
We got to see each
All
other.
right, that's good. So it would be, I don't know if other people are still coming back. Let's give it a second. We lost Mike. Was anybody in with Mike?
Oh, here comes
here we
Mike.
go. Maybe. Huh, there we go. Perfect.
Time we come back, we take a drink.
I know it kind of did.
Yep.
More breakouts, more breakouts.
I know. Bad influence. After we share, we have a little surprise in the middle here. So stay
So
tuned.
what, is someone delivering us beer?
Ooh,
Yes.
I love that idea.
Well, though, for a conference we all got a package that day of the package. It was a
Oh,
face mask and a couple of other little ditties, but that was kind of a cool idea.
that's a really nice idea.
We did do that when we did our Family Business Alliance. There's other family business centers like us around the country.
Yeah.
So I normally wouldn't have been able to go because it was in June, but they were going to go to Toronto. So then they just started making an online one. So we did a week-long conference, and one of them was in California. So he had Charles Krug wine, and we bought that, and it got delivered. Virtual tour of the vineyard with the CEO while we were sitting there doing it at the end.
Oh, that's a really great idea.
It was really, really fun.
I know. Think about all the family businesses there are that we know, it's just remarkable. We run the country.
Yep. Well,
So,
80% of businesses in Maine are family owned. So
yeah. Isn't it close to that nationally? Isn't it like 75 or so?
I thought it was higher, but
yeah. Tell me, what'd you guys share? Who pivoted? and it might not even be a pivot. It might be like a subtle little thing that happened.
Well, I could tell a little bit about what's happening. I work at Camden National Bank, and so clearly, our banking centers remained open, but with all kinds of restrictions. Clearly, less people are walking into the banking centers. More people are using the drive-through, but more people adapted to using the online channel, which was good. I mean, a lot of people do online banking, but then there were those people who were hesitant to, and they were able to kind of get over it and to work with that channel. That was great. But the other thing we did is we made a proactive effort to do what we called was a listening campaign, and we called customers just to check in. This sort of late this spring, kind of early summer, to see how COVID was affecting their business. If there was anything they needed in terms of support and banking services, were they able to access everything online that they needed, things that they wish they could do that maybe they felt that they couldn't. And so that was a really good way to kind of just get a pulse of what was going on and to sort of be helpful. We were very, people, have limited time, and we respect that, but it was amazing how many people wanted to talk and tell their story. So that was very valuable. Something that happened as a reaction to that is that we started producing more content that we could deliver virtually. So I do things like write blogs for the bank, blogs, I guess, talk to Linda about communication. Great stuff like, how to manage your cash remotely during a pandemic and, and changing your cash flow forecast, cash flow forecasting in a pandemic. And the one that came out that really kind of struck me that we realized kind of through the listening campaign, I was talking to a head of an organization who was saying that the businesses as part of its group, a lot of them were afraid to talk to their banker. So they weren't talking to the bank in these uncertain times. And it's a little counterintuitive, but that's not what you should be doing. You should be talking to your banker because there's more things that the bank can do if you're communicating. And so the latest blog was talking to your banker in uncertain times and what you need to say, what questions to expect, how that kind of conversation goes. And I collaborated a lot with my colleagues in commercial lending, and we kind of thought about it. And it just really felt good because we knew that maybe people weren't talking about it, but people were reading it and it resonated with a lot of people. And that just felt really wonderful. And to be able to kind of both listen and then provide, value added content that we know is being used and is appreciated. Not everybody wants to get on a big webinar and say, hey, my business is struggling, right? And you have issues. But it's really important to kind of get that information out there and so you can establish conversations. So that was very worthwhile. I think we'll be doing more of that, even not in a pandemic.
I love that example. I was in sales for a long time, like relationship development. And, I was just always amazed, like whenever I would pull my head out of the sand or somewhere else and be like, I really haven't talked to my customers in a long time to ask them like what's going right and what isn't going right. And, or, what are the new things that you're seeing in your business that we might be able to aid in, right? That's really great. Thank you. What other examples are out there?
I have an example. I'm Lindsay from Gifford's Ice Cream, and I keep thinking of different things because when you're in a pandemic, I've learned that everything is chaotic and crazy, and then you've got your kids running in here. One thing that I just thought of is one of our sales family members. We do something called a scoop training in the spring for all independent scoop shops or colleges, and we help them train their staff. And we, our sales family, we said, they're in different states. We said, just stay put, we'll keep communicating. Here's what, they had projects, they had plenty of phone calls and things that they could do. And one of our sales reps, she actually was setting up a virtual scoop trainings at the time through Zoom. Now we do it through Teams. But she set up a nice display in her house, and she obviously had the Gifford's ice cream to show them. So it really was just like we were saying earlier. It's like we kept the customer service aspect. We really were reaching out to our customers and just seeing how they were doing and lending an ear and knowing that things are tough, but we'll get through this together. And so I think that will carry us a long way with them, just that support and loyalty and us helping them shift. And then the other aspect is, our independent stands, they really look to us because we have 5 of our own stands that we own and operate. So, that end of our business, we would figure out, okay, here's how we're going to do things when we open. Our sales family would then kind of hand that over to our independent scoop shops and say, here's how we're doing it. We did all the work for you. If you want to, model this, then here you go. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. It's just everybody needs help right now navigating. Thank you, Lindsay. What other ideas or what other unexpected twists and turns happened?
I'll share. So Ruben and I were in the same group again, but for my business coaching, I've always been able to do coaching virtually, online, on Zoom. But what I need to do is shift my sales and marketing strategy, so it's more online. I've traditionally just networked and done public speaking and things to funnel people to my business. But my husband, on the other hand, we're uncertain about what 2021 is going to look like. And for a long time, even before the pandemic, before COVID, he's been thinking about trying something new so that he could eventually work himself out of bar work, doing karaoke till 2 a.m. It's, he loves it. He would do it for the rest of his life if he could, but he's thinking, maybe there's an opportunity. So now he's taking that opportunity and he's studying for his real estate license, and he's really excited about that. So it's actually been kind of an exciting thing for him, even though it's scary and weird. But, we've decided to, by pivoting and looking at how do we want to make money in the future, we have at least another 20 or so years to work. What do we want to do? What do we want it to look like? Because 2021 is not guaranteed. We have contracts signed, but we don't know if we're going to be able to fulfill them if we continue to have shutdowns. So, but this has been kind of exciting for him too, because he's like, well, maybe this is a chance for me to take the time, because normally never has enough time to do something new. And now he's getting to explore a few of those options. So it's been kind of cool.
So one of my favorite quotes is from Steve Hewins, that you all probably know from the Maine hospitality. I worked with him for 11 years. He always said, out of chaos comes opportunity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's true. It's like when you lose a person or something changes, you think, oh no, but kind of out of chaos, there is other opportunities and things that come along that you wouldn't necessarily think about.
My husband would find a silver lining in a mud puddle, so
Yeah.
really good at that.
That line, that's a good line.
My other favorite mentor one was help me understand. Help me understand COVID. I'm not quite sure how this is all going.
Yeah.
Those are two good ones.
Oh. Any other nuggets to share? Mike, Bethany, you guys haven't had a chance to talk yet. I'm not putting you on the spot. You don't have to talk, but just wanted to honor that you're there.
Yeah, just with others, I think it's helped people get over the technology hump. It's made us stronger and better from conducting workshops that we used to conduct in person. Now we're doing them online, and we can draw statewide participation. So it's made the workshops more interesting and better with more attendees. We'll go back. I think ultimately we'll end up with a hybrid model, but much of what we're doing and the ability we talked about in the group, and everybody agreed that this really pushed people over that technology hump, kind of, from a banking standpoint or the adjusting standpoint, and from our standpoint, things that we wanted to get people to do that they resisted. So that's been good.
That's awesome. What about you, Bethany? Anything?
So I work for IFOB with Catherine. So
right. I just didn't know if something happened for you guys that might be unexpected.
Yeah, I think my time working with them, interning with them, I think I've just been able to look at a lot of family businesses and see, the struggles throughout this time. So it's been an awesome opportunity to see how these small companies can grow kind of together and work together. So I think, hearing from some today, it's just been really nice to hear what they've gone through and how they've, come out of that. So yeah.
Beautiful.
And we met Bethany remotely. Normally we would get to meet in person. And so she's pretty much been working all remote with us. And she's been doing a great job. So,
congratulations.
glad to have her.
Not easy.
Thank you.
So, all right, who is ready to just stand up for a minute before we go to our next section? Anybody want to stand up for a second?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna do this. You hear that?
One cut.
Ready? You can do it.
Now we're having a little dance party.
Make sure you get your step counter on, Catherine. Down in London town to go. Oh, with the record selection and the mirror's reflection, I'm dancing with myself. Oh, when there's no one else inside, in the crowded lonely night. Well, you can dance in your chair too. Vibration, and I'm dancing with myself. Dancing with myself. Dancing with myself. Oh, when there's nothing to lose and there's nothing to prove, I'm dancing with myself. If I looked all over the world, and it was every time.
We met lots of you people.
Dancing with myself. So listen to another.
Catherine, I hope you had your step counter on.
They can't get another drink. Are you kidding me?
I'm out of shape. I'm like,
Yeah, me too.
I have a kneeling chair, so I cannot stand in front
you
of
can just go like this.
It's like,
Oh my God. So I've been doing employee engagement like most of my life. And dance parties are just so fun. And it's so fun that you can actually do them on Zoom. Like we've ended sessions that way, just finding some fun music. And so we thought, when Catherine and I are talking, I'm like, do you think they'll mind?
well, Well, you told us to have a
So,
drink, so no,
it's
we should
important.
be at least a half a drink in by now.
I know.
Yeah.
Dancing is really important. All right, I'm going to share my screen for a second here. Hold on. Da, da, na, 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 ba, ba, ba. It's hard to get out of your head once you hear that song. The DJs must know that. I'm not sure why that's going like that. There we go. So that was the dance party. We didn't quite look like that, but you know. One of the things that I just wanted to also talk about that we said we were going to talk about, and I think is really important, is this concept of resilience, which really comes back in my mind to mindset. And I think we've demonstrated just in how we've been talking tonight, and especially with the examples about pivoting, but you know, mindset is really about how we handle the things that are coming to us, right? So that there's a group out of New York called the Potential Project, and they have done lots of studies over the past 10 or 15 years with, gosh, maybe close to 1,000 CEOs, 40,000 employees. And they're really looking at how resiliency practices, mindfulness practices, how those things can impact to the negative or the positive. But what we're finding is, by and large, it's positive, how it can impact our work and our well-being. And I went to one of their presentations about delivering some data on that, on the outcomes of some of this work. And they were talking around mindset and about, you know, there are these things that are unavoidable that are going to come toward us, right? The virus, the health crisis, financial downturn, et cetera. And they call those, you know, that's the first arrow. And then the second arrow, now they're saying that it's mind-made. I would actually push against this a little bit. So I think fear, anxiety, frustration, and sadness, those are feelings that we feel. So I actually don't believe how they've written this, but I still like to use it because I think a lot of people think that they're avoidable. They're not. I don't believe these things are avoidable. I believe that these things happen to all of us. We feel fear, we feel anxiety, we feel frustration, and we feel sadness. And one of the things that, you know, what I do like about what they talk about is you beware of those second arrows, because that's where we have control. That's where we have some level of control. And I'm a big believer in that when we do have emotions coming up, that, you know, you don't really want to shove them down, because it's information that our bodies are giving us. So many of us live from the neck up. You know, we're just always thinking through everything. We live right up here. And very, very infrequently do we allow ourselves to dip inside of our body. Our body is a huge source of information. When we're feeling fear, when we're feeling anxiety and frustration, you can stop and just notice what is causing that, right? What's causing that fear? And then acknowledge it and just allow yourself, it's called through me energy thinking. It's allowing yourself to not run from it, but to take it as a piece of information. And I just love that. And that's from one of my teachers, John Kabat-Zinn. And I think that it's really important to remember that. And so I've been studying mindfulness and teaching this for now I've been studying since about 2014. And so teaching it for the last several years, teaching very entry level, I am not a licensed mindfulness instructor. However, I've been on this journey researching how we work for the past 100+ years, and how we have changed in our behaviors physiologically, like in terms of how much we're sitting all day, right? As a population health junkie, I've, you know, paid attention to sitting as the new smoking, right? But I would say that in addition to moving, one of the things that kind of gets us in trouble, if we think about moving with our mind, right? Our minds are always going. Our bodies, not so much, but our minds are always going. And one of the things that I've heard people, some of my teachers explain it, is that, your mind is a thought producing machine. So if you can think of it that way, our mind are always producing thoughts, and that's what they do. Like, that's what the mind is supposed to be doing, is bringing thoughts. The key is understanding that those thoughts are not you. Those thoughts are just things that are coming up, and the fear and the emotions, it's all pieces of information. And the biggest thing that we can do, every bit of science I have studied for the past 10 years, my first company was called Break Together, because taking a break, taking a breath, breaking from what we're doing neurologically is necessary for our well-being. Because if we just jump from thing to thing, it increases the cortisol in our systems, which is the stress hormone. And the stress hormone is linked to negative health outcomes. Every single chronic disease that you can think of, congestive heart failure, diabetes, obesity, cancer, all of those things are negatively impacted by stress. And so if you can do this one thing, I'm kid you not, during the day, is to stop and take a breath throughout your day, just now and then. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to let you see what just 60 seconds feels like. And I'm going to stop sharing for a second so you can see that we're all kind of here together. But I want you, Linda can tell you that I used to start out with like 15-minute breaks. And I realized people thought I was absolutely out of my mind. They didn't have 15 minutes in their day. And now I do 1 or 2 minutes. So we're just going to do 1 minute together. All right. Are you guys okay with that? Trying this with me? 1 minute. So we're going to take a deep breath in. So get your feet on the floor where you're comfortable, and bring your shoulders down away from your neck if you can, just to kind of ease that tension. And take a deep breath in. Hold it and let it out. So we're going to go in on the count of 4, hold it for 2, and out for 5. And we're going to do 3 more of those. So in for 4, hold it for 2, out for 5. In for 4, hold it for 2, out for 5. One more round. In for 4, hold it for 2, out for 5. Now, before you do another thing, we're going to be quiet right now for 60 seconds. Don't check your devices. Just stay with me. You can soften your eyes, you can close your eyes, or you can look at something pleasing. 60 seconds right now. Just let yourself relax. So slowly bring your attention back to me, or to us, to the group. Do you feel calmer just a little bit? So 1 minute, a few deep breaths. We've scientists now, Jed Brewer out of Brown University was at MIT, now at Brown, has done a lot of studies around just that simple act of the deep breathing in the minute can reduce your cortisol. Like they've been able to test that, and it brings your heart rate down and it brings your blood pressure down. So if you're going for your physical checkup anytime soon, if you're risking that, but it's still important. If you do that right before you get your blood pressure, I guarantee it'll be better. So that taking a pause, I'm going to share my screen again, is just one of the most important things that we can do for ourselves in terms of self-care. And I think self-care gets confused a lot of the time with selfish, right? Or self-indulgent. It's a very different thing. Being self-indulgent or selfish is really kind of an external thing. You're not aware of the external, and you're only, thinking about yourself. Self-care is mind, body, soul. Like self-care is about paying attention to what we're doing on a moment to moment basis. And the building habits of resiliency, the studies have all shown, and I think I took out a couple other things. So what we've learned through the work from the Potential Project is that they gave it these tools, these breathing tools on an app to 5,000 people. And then they received 750 responses back from folks around, from their experience. And at the beginning, this was in March, that they started this right at the end of March, beginning of April, when COVID was in full swing. And well, I guess it's in full swing now, but when we were first learning about it. And like 70 or 80% of the people in this pie chart were feeling stress and anxiety and just off the charts. And by 10 minutes a day, not all at once, 10 minutes a day for 12 weeks, 10 minutes a day, a minute here, a minute there, 3 minutes here, 4 minutes there, 90% of the people in the study felt calmer. And that is remarkable, because you can't even find a pill that has that kind of success. So finding that place for self-care is huge, and the breath and the space in the day is the number one thing you can do. So Dr. Sherry Hamby, she's the founder of Resilience Con. She has done studies over the last couple of years, and they've refreshed those studies during the past few months. And what they've learned from the results are that these are the things, these building habits of resiliency are small things throughout the day. And so things like the mindfulness and the space, that equals emotional regulation, really important to our emotional well-being. A sense of purpose. So we all have jobs that, and especially family-owned, like most family-owned businesses have a high sense of purpose. And so that's going for us. Humor and laughter, cannot get enough of that. And we'll be adding a little bit of that in a moment. Volunteering, doing for other people. That's a place where people have really, where they've said the studies show that, you kind of take the gas off of what's going on for yourself when you're thinking about other people. Sleep is huge. Catherine and I have talked about this. Sleep is really, really, really important. It's foundational. Exercise and movement is really important. Human connections, as we know, like you can still get outside and go for a walk with folks with your masks on. So even if it's cold, just bundle up. We live in a beautiful place. Expressive writing. So some people do journaling. They found that expressive writing, just writing down what you're grateful for. So kind of gratitude and expressive writing go together. The reason the three are in green here, the mindfulness, exercise, and expressive writing, those were actually the top 3 in her study, where people said that that they really made a difference during this time period. And so for me, it's not hard to it's always fun to want to play with a little humor. So here is our buddy.
Yeah. Happy Friday, friends.
We can't see him.
Called me
See it?
last night.
No, well, let me see.
Hold on.
She goes, Bobby, I finally figured out who I'm voting for this year at the election. I go, well, who's that, Ma?
I'm so sorry, you guys. You can't
I
see
can
him.
hear him. Can you see him?
I can see him, but you guys can't see him.
No.
Hold on one
Your
second.
screen's not sharing anymore.
All right, let me do this.
Share your screen again. There we go.
Oh, hello. I'm such a
It's okay.
goofball. There. Sorry, guys.
Oh, here we go.
Now, hold on.
I've been driving around town and I've been looking at all the different signs on people's lawns. And I gotta tell you, Bobby, this Keller Williams guy is really starting to win me over. His signs are everywhere, Bobby. I'm like, Ma, Bobby, he is reality. I go, wow, that's friggin' realty. He's a real estate agent. Oh, stop it, Bobby. Jesus. He's the only candidate that put his goddamn phone number on the sign. The guy's got to be the real deal. I'm going for Keller Williams.
I couldn't resist. You know, if you can't inject a good little Bobby now and then. Did anybody follow him, his Corona watch at all?
Yes, he was very funny.
Yeah, very funny.
I had to look for some clean ones for us.
Yes, we did. We tried. He did say GG, so sorry about that.
Yes.
So, you know, the point here in my mind is just remembering that resiliency in these practices is about small steps. It's about these little tiny things that we do each day that can make a huge difference. And, you know, I would have thought that it would have been something much more profound when I'm looking back at research that I've done over 6-7 years time. And it is that simple. It really is that simple. It's taking that space. Our prefrontal cortex is where it's kind of like our data processor. It's where all the information is coming in. And the amygdala is like at the core, it's where our reflexes are, right? Or where our reaction and where our intuition kind of is held. And what happens is if there's no space between the information coming in and the reaction piece of our brain, then we're going to just pop off. Like we all see it driving, right? And I've seen it more lately. Like I've seen people driving through my neighborhood. There's a 25 mile an hour on my little curve here in South Portland. And I've seen people going regularly, like twice that. Like it's just, I have to like jump off the sidewalk because they're frustrated and they're freaking out. And I get that, but it's that pop. If we don't create the space to process the information, that's when we go off. That's when we're reacting instead of responding. And what happens in terms of resiliency is the ability to be able to respond and to be calmer. Like today I was telling Catherine, I literally watched a man fall and was the first person to pull over to go. He was 96. He's okay. But I had to help and we had to figure out who he was and what was going on and call the ambulance. And I mean, I was like super worried about him and just affected by watching this gentleman. And his wife was in a place where she couldn't walk down the stairs out of their home to come and help. And the ambulance driver said that she can't come to the hospital anyway because of COVID. And I was just an emotional kind of wreck for a bit there. And so I was able to come home and knew he was taken care of. The ambulance went off and the next door neighbor came and knew them really well and was helping the wife. And so it left it, but it was still really emotional. And I came home and I just did some deep breathing. I literally just kind of sat down and just took a breath and I thought about what happened. And I then became grateful that I was able to be there. I literally saw him fall. I was able to pull right over. You can't imagine the cars that were just flying by me. and didn't see him down on the ground. Like it took me a bit to get across the street because I saw him, he's over here and I'm driving. And so it took me a bit to get across the street and nobody saw him and he's laying on the ground. So I was then thankful that I did see him and that I could stop, and that all of the neighbors, everybody, just once one person stopped, then everybody started stopping, and an EMT stopped and waited until the person came. And the reason I'm saying all that is that could really throw you off. And what happened is I was able to come back and take a breath and come into a place of gratitude, and then come into a place of saying, wow, you know, I'm so thankful, like, and then be thinking about all these little nuances that I might have just rushed through if I'd stayed in that high stress place. Just, you know, jumping to, oh my gosh, I need to get on this call and I need to do all that. Like, I didn't have to do all that right then. I had a few minutes to relax, you know, to check in with myself and then find these little nuggets. So kind of a long story, but it just, I think, helps you see that these things can happen all over. We're all dealing with them every day. And these spaces really, truly help us build resiliency. And so I'd love to open it up to, what are you guys doing for self-care today? Does anybody have any favorite go-to practices?
For me, it's exercise. I'm Judy. I work with Maine Foodie Tours. I'm kind of semi-retired. I'm Catherine's neighbor. But exercise is a big one. Catherine and I get together and walk and having that social interaction. Plus, we're outside and getting some fresh air and all of that.
She's my savior. We're doing 750 miles Boston to Bar Harbor in the next 6 months, and we just signed up for the Y. I did.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference.
Huge. Yeah, huge. Thanks, Judy.
I was telling my group in chat, and I'm going to apologize because my husband just got here, the other partner in my business, to do some work next door. So, but I was telling in our group, once they opened up, once the golf courses opened up June 1st, I've been a member of MSGA for a long time, but I've only played in like 2 tournaments a year. And this year, I just forced myself to sign up for the golf tournaments on Tuesdays, and, you know, probably played in like, I don't know, 7, 8, 9. And then the IFOB did the wine and 9. So it was like, yep, I'm going to do that too. And, you know, so just, you know, you had to have, I found this was the first time I really felt like I had to have things to look forward to. And and you have to sign up for a golf tournament like 4 weeks in advance, or 4 or 5 weeks or something ridiculous like that. So like it's on your calendar, and you know, so yeah, just something goofy.
A great one. Yeah, just sign up.
Yeah, just sign up for stuff. Yeah.
It's true.
So my family and I, and somebody else can go. Sorry, my son needs.
Oh, it's fine.
Oh, so cute.
Tell him hi. Hi.
I'm gonna say good night.
All right, you guys.
Yeah.
Good night, Linda.
I don't do anything particularly repetitive in terms of self-care, but one thing I did do at the very beginning of all this was I tend to be a chronic worrier. I worry about everything and I internalize everything, and it occasionally erupts in these inappropriate ways. And I just decided, we were at a conference at the end of March, a catering conference, and almost couldn't get home. We were in Las Vegas when they started talking about shutting down the airports. It was right before St. Patrick's Day. And then we got home on that Saturday, whatever that third week of March was. Everything had hit the fan by then. The next day they canceled school indefinitely. And then 2 days later, my husband ended up in the hospital for almost a month with appendicitis and a bad infection. And all of a sudden we're filling out, I just sent all the employees home. I'm filling out federal loan relief forms. Within, 72 hours, my entire life just exploded. And I remember thinking really early on, I am just not going to let this ruin my year. And that's how I proceeded through the whole thing. And work has been a just horror show in a lot of ways, with the reschedules and the clients and the employees. And we just, I only think about 10 days ahead at this point, because you just don't know what's going to happen. And that has been really useful for me, is to just not worry about it. And it's not that I'm not concerned, and it's not that I am just shrugging my shoulders. That's not what I mean at all. I just decided I can either freak out or not. And I just decided to not. And I had a much better year than if I had chosen to do the opposite, I think. So that's what I did.
Ruben, that is the most amazing example of mindset.
Well, thank you.
Really. And honor to you. That is a lot to go through in a short amount of time. And it's remarkable what can happen when we A, lean into each other, and B, realize about like worrying it doesn't help us. And if we can, you can let it go, and it's not being irresponsible. And I think as business owners, we don't sometimes make that association, that we think if we're not worrying, that we're not being responsible. And they're two things.
And to Ruben's point, I am a chronic worrier also. I mean, I will stress out about things that normal people probably don't stress out about. But I do think that we put extra pressure on ourselves. Sure. You want candy? He found the Halloween buckets. I mean, anyways, but I do think that, I have this kind of saying, or my family does, stay even. And right when this was happening, I remember I'm like driving up to Skowhegan, and I'm like, you know what? It's okay, because we're going to get through this one way or another. We're in this together. We're a family business. Just take a deep breath, stay even. And that's like, I always say, okay, stay even. Like, I'm not going to get frantic, because nothing good is going to come of it. Just kind of stay even. We're going to figure it out together. And if it's, also like if it's a glass ball, something that, okay, if you don't do this right now, then something bad will happen, versus what's a rubber ball? What can we just put aside for right now and worry about later? It'll keep bouncing. It's not going to be detrimental to the business. And let's focus on the glass balls right now, because we can only do so much. And so, but I have to remind myself that all the time, like right now when my husband's not home yet, and it's just little things. So one day at a time, that's what I keep telling myself.
That's a really good, I've got to write that down. Glass balls and rubber balls.
Yeah.
And there's like these great images too on the stay even. There's a line about like the iceberg, you see the tip of the iceberg, and there's a new visual that I've been seeing around resilience, that if you dip below that line, like if you're not self-caring and you're worrying too much, whatever, like if you figure worrying is kind of below the line and you stay too long below the line, it gets harder to get back above the line or to that even point. And so it's kind of nice to have those kind of visuals, like, just this of saying, okay, I'm in this behavior, and you recognize it, and then you try to do something to offset it. And that's really good. And how to set those priorities. I like that. I'm gonna find a visual for that.
I didn't make that up. That came from a book. I'm not that smart.
Neither am I. It was good.
I really like that too. And Catherine, was it this morning, Catherine, or yesterday? I brought up the serenity prayer, which ties into this whole thing, which if you don't know it, basically it's, grant me the serenity to accept things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can. And the most important part to me is the wisdom to know the difference and being able to separate those things. And the only thing that I can control is myself, and the one day at a time, and and all those things. For many, many years, that serenity prayer was my mantra. I had to say it to myself over and over and over in the course of the day to try to be able to stay even.
Yeah, it's a really good prayer. It really is. What else, you guys?
I mean, I don't know if anybody else has found this, but and maybe this is, sometimes as business leaders, we have big shoulders. We can handle it, but there comes a point where it's just like, okay, I need a break. I need a breather. And I find myself, in a family business, whether you're blood related or not, you're related, right? And so I find myself, I can tell with my coworkers how their day, you can sense how their day is going through virtual meetings. And sometimes I just have canceled a meeting, but had personal conversations with them and just said, you know what? I need a moment. Do you need a moment? Because there's just too much going on, and let's reschedule this. It's not that important right now. And I've had to do that twice this week with different colleagues, and it just kind of resets us. Even though in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, we really do need to get this done, but I guess it can wait a day, because nothing good's going to come out of it if they're just this ball of stress. So, I found that has helped also, just kind of, let's push the reset button. We're in this together. You're having a hard time because you're homeschooling your kids and juggling work or whatever it may be. Everybody's story is different, but, we're all human. We're trying to do the best we can. So, yeah,
I think
kind of helped.
Are welcoming when somebody is allowed for that humanity. Barbara, were you going to say something?
Just to say, if I was Lindsay, I don't know how you don't just like stress eat all of the ice cream.
Well, my son just brought me a chocolate, and I was like, "Ooh, can you bring? Does he know how to scoop ice cream yet?"
I have
I have been eating a lot of ice cream lately. As you know.
I have too. I've been certainly been indulging in ice cream. My treat of choice.
That's why Judy and I have to walk, because I'm not cutting off my eating habits.
It's so good.
Yeah, so I do an exercise group. Some of the moms or sons play baseball, and they were socially distant baseball this summer, which was good. And this group of moms asked me, they're like, oh, we do a track group. We run on the track, do you want to join us? And it's like at 6 a.m. on Thursdays. And I'm like, oh, I can do that. I walk, but I don't really run, but this would be a good opportunity to do that. It turns out they're all like triathletes. They're like runners. And these workouts are pretty intense. And so, but I've sort of stuck with it. And it's an interesting thing. So there's a couple things for me that I realized looking back on it. First, it's like great exercise. And it's just, I really need that push to kind of go out with a group and to kind of push. But I can do I'm good for like walking 2 miles in the morning. I'm good for 10,000 steps, but I don't really push myself like that hard. So that was good. The other thing that I like about this group is I'm not organizing it. So in my role, I wind up running a lot of things. And so it's great to be like, they do it and I just do what they say. and I'm also like in this group, like I am the worst. Like I am the last person. I am like, they are so far ahead. This morning it was foggy. I couldn't even see them. But like, that's also really great. I find it's really great for sort of my leadership. It's just, you don't always have to run everything and kind of be in charge. And, it's definitely sometimes really good to kind of be able to be in the back of the pack. So that's been one of my COVID lessons.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, it is okay to be in the back of the pack.
You don't always have to be the chief. You can be the Indian. So.
How about others?
This is Anne Latendris. I'll share. So I love the list that you provided earlier of the different things that can help us to stop and take a breath. And I do several of those, but I found that one of the things I do, because I do travel to our office a couple times a week, which is about an hour and a half commute for me. So I've been very big lately about finding audiobooks to listen to. The biggest thing that it's helped me learn and share with other people is that life is about choices, and mindset is no different. Your mindset is a choice. People can be negative or they can choose to be positive. It takes some work. So I know that with COVID, along with the professional things that we've been dealing with, I'm sure everybody has their own personal things in the mix too. So many people have lost loved ones. So, and not to give a sob story, but just to put into perspective, and then I'm going to end what I'm saying by recommending an audiobook that I'm listening to right now, is that, so in April, I lost a brother due to cancer. And then in July, I learned that I will need to undergo a bone marrow transplant. And I took on the director of human resources in January, just before COVID hit. So it's been a lot. But this audiobook that I'm listening to, which you can probably find in paper format as well, it is a book called 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do. It is again by Amy Morin, who is a therapist, and it touches on so many different things that there's no way that it doesn't apply to every single person on the planet. I have recommended it to so many different people, and I would highly suggest that you look into it.
Wow, I just typed it into the chat.
It's amazing.
Oh, and that is a lot to go through.
It's a lot, but you know what? I am great, and it's weird. I'm not just saying that as a coping mechanism. And I had to explain the other day to a friend. She's like, "How are you not freaking out about everything?" I'm like, "Oh, here, let me give you this list of audiobooks." It helps you to learn how to channel your thoughts and how to keep them in the right space and how to focus on what's in your control so that you can healthily handle anything that's going to come your way. And that you just don't lose your thought processes and let them take over in the wrong direction. And you just take good actions.
That's great. I'm going to listen to that. I listen to podcasts and books, and Catherine and I are going to create a little handout to go. I'm going to create a handout and send it to Catherine, and she'll send out to people. And so we'll try and take a snapshot of this. Catherine, maybe you can, I think you can get a copy of the chat. It'll come to you maybe.
Yep.
Yeah. I actually even have a colleague right now that we have on an action plan that we're working with him to help him develop and grow. And as part of his development plan, I've actually had him start listening to it, and we talk about it on a weekly basis.
Oh, nice idea.
Yeah, so it's really beneficial in a lot of ways.
A human thing for human resources.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What else, you guys? Anybody else have anything? Catherine?
Well, just because I know people might start popping, I did pop a survey link, and I'll send a copy of the recording of this to all of you. If you have a handout, Elizabeth, we can send it forward.
I'll create one for you. So if I get that to you by the weekend, is that okay?
Yeah, and then I'll send a follow up to everybody who came.
I'm going to stop the recording right now just so they don't have to hear that part.